welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. This is your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Chloe Bear Money Coach on the internet. And this is the podcast where we talk about all things money. So, guys, in terms of what's been going on in the Chloe Bear universe, not a whole lot, I'll be honest. I've been really grinding lately and trying to do a few new things in the Chloe Bear Money coach business and all that good stuff. But besides that, there's not a whole lot going on in my personal life. I know you guys love hearing about my personal life, and I feel like I'm failing you on that front because it's really mostly been work. Now that we're in spooky season, so I'm filming this on October 6th, I guess I'm listening to more spooky podcasts, and some of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to are, and I don't really recommend this if you're like a single woman who lives alone, but sure enough, I do it anyway. I do it anyway. But I've been binge listening to Let's Not Meet, which is a podcast episode of people just telling like horrifying stories from their real life. And obviously they're all survivors and they got through whatever happened, but it's like really spooky and really well produced. The other one I love is And That's Why We Drink. And they'll cover a lot of different paranormal things, but they'll also cover true crime. I've been trying to get away from true crime just because I feel like that leads to me having nightmares and anxiety about living alone. And I think there's a certain point where you have to do what's best for your own mental health. And I think the reason that so many women are obsessed with true crime is because it feels like we're like studying, we're like preparing for if this ever happens to us and what to do in those situations. But I think I've listened to enough true crime at this point that I could have a PhD in it. So I probably don't need to be listening to it anymore. So I've been taking a step back from my beloved My Favorite Murder podcast and my morbid podcast just because I want to protect my mental energy. So I've taken a step back, but I've been listening to Let's Not Meet because it's a spooky season. I also have enjoying the No Sleep podcast, which is all like scary stories, but they're so fantastical that I don't believe in any of them could happen to me. It's more like entertainment scary stuff rather than true crime, which actually happens to people. And then besides that, for the more lighthearted listen, I still am obsessed with Two Hot Takes. And I would like to do more Reddit episodes in the future because I really enjoyed that. So I think I'm going to try and do one Reddit episode a month because you guys also seem to really enjoy that. But that all came from the inspiration came from Two Hot Takes, where they go through the Am I the Asshole Reddit thread and they just look at like the craziest situations. Mine, I'm going to keep them focused on money, but I really enjoy those reactions. And I don't know why. I think it's just morbid curiosity of how the rest of the world works and getting opinions and seeing how my opinions on the situation, what the person should have done, how they match with mine or don't match with mine. What else? Oh, and the other one that I've been listening to a lot is the I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Or Sethi. He essentially plays therapist and he'll bring people on to the podcast to talk about their money problems with their partner on. And he's got like a degree in psychology, but he's not a therapist. He's a money coach essentially. And it's just been really interesting to hear his take on different problems that couples have with money. So that show, very binge worthy. He's only got like I want to say about 50 episodes out, but I've been bulldozing my way through those. And in terms of reading, I have been really working hard on my mindset and building better habits. And so I bought Bad Habits, I think is what it's called, by Jen Sincero. Let me fact check myself. I think it's what it's called. Bad Habits. And it's called not Bad Habits. Badass Habits. Oh gosh, I should have known because she also had Your Badass self-help book, which was honestly life-changing for me. It's what had me start clobear.com. But yeah, Badass Habits is what I'm working my way through right now, and I've been really enjoying it. I just really like Jen Sincero. She's super chill and she's quirky. She's sassy. She's funny. So we'll see. Maybe it'll change my life, guys. I need some life-changing habits, badass habits. So anyway, that's kind of all that's been going on in the Chloe Bear universe. I'm staying in a very spooky Airbnb in Seattle. I freaking love it, but it is a little spooky at night, which is perfect for spooky season. Not perfect for sleep quality. We can't have it all, right? We cannot have it all. All right, before we get to this week's episode where I have brought on Shay from Shay Budgets, we are going to talk about fractional share investing. There is this idea or myth out there that you cannot invest unless you have a ton of money to invest. And that used to be true. It used to be that In order to invest, you had to have a minimum of $1,000 or $3,000 or $10,000, depending on what brokerage you went with. But luckily, there's something called fractional share investing now, and also a lot of brokerages no longer require minimums. So you may be thinking, what is fractional share investing, Chloe? You're speaking another language. Fractional share investing is basically the same thing as instead of buying an entire pizza, you're buying a slice of pizza. So let's say, for example, that you're trying to buy VTI, which is the Total Stock Market Index Fund. Instead of buying it for $300, which is the cost of one share the last time I looked, you could say, hey, I only have 20 bucks. So I'm going to buy $20 worth of VTI. So instead of having an entire share, you have a small slice of that share, and you're still going to benefit from that compound interest and the growth that VTI experiences, just on a smaller level because you own a smaller percentage of a share. That makes investing so much easier because you don't have to wait until you have $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000. Instead, you can get started with what you have right now. Now, some brokerages don't allow this. So the brokerages that do allow it, my favorite is Fidelity. Fidelity has no minimums on any of their investments. So you can buy any of their investments, mutual funds, ETFs, bonds, whatever, for no minimum. So if you have $1 to invest, you can start investing with $1, which is pretty cool. Fidelity is probably my number one favorite in this list of brokerages that allow it. Charles Schwab has limited stock share investing or fractional share investing where you can do, I think they have 30 different stocks from the S&P 500 where you can do stock slices or stock slices, I think is what they call it. I don't love their fractional share investing, so I probably wouldn't recommend them. Vanguard just introduced ETF fractional share investing. So we were just talking about VTI, which is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. On Vanguard, you can now buy VTI ETF for as little as $1. So that is an option, but that's only an option with their ETFs. Their mutual funds still have minimums. So their minimums for most of their mutual funds is $3,000, and some of their mutual funds minimums, like their target date funds, are closer to $1,000. But if you're looking at investing in ETFs, that is an option for Vanguard. And since they just started introducing fractional share investing for ETFs, my hope is that eventually they'll move into fractional share investing for everything and get rid of their minimums, because the minimums are silly. I don't think they're helpful. I know they're not helpful. So as of now, Fidelity continues to be my favorite brokerage because of their ease of access, and they just make it easier and cheaper for people to invest. The other one that I do think I think is worth mentioning is M1 Finance. M1 Finance is one of my favorite robo-advisors, do-it-yourself brokerage like hybrids, where essentially you can purchase stock slices and put it together in a pie. So you can start for as little as $1 and pick as many different funds as you want, and you can split it among your pie, your portfolio, however you'd like. So I do like M1 Finance. They also will automate things for you, which automation with ETF, the only time you can automate your ETF investing is when you're using a robo-advisor or fintech company like M1 Finance. So those are my favorites. If you want a list of my favorite brokerages and more explanations on why I like those brokerages, head on over to thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And in that guide, there's an entire page talking about my favorite brokerages and why, as well as links to that. Check that out. Again, that's thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. So that's my money tip for the week, my friends. And if you have questions on it, feel free to DM me on Instagram and I can send you some more posts on fractional share investing. But that means there's no more excuses. If you have 20 bucks to invest each month, do it. Do it. This is not financial advice, but do it. We'll dive into this week's episode, but before we do, friendly reminder that we live for your ratings, your reviews, and your subscriptions. So if you could do that, it helps us out a lot, and it tells me that you want this podcast to continue. So if you do it, I would love to thank you personally. So feel free to take a screenshot and send it to me, and I will thank you myself. All right, let's get to this week's episode. All right, all right. Welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. Today we have on a friend who I actually met in real life before I ever knew her on the internet. She and I met in, of all places, Omaha, Nebraska. And I've got Shay Budgets on today. Shay, thanks so much for coming on.
No problem.
Yes, I love it. I hear your fur baby barking in the background.
That's going to be a problem for me because everything was quiet until I got on this podcast.
Of course, that's how it always works. It's
Yes,
like,
but
oh
I see
wait, you're
Logan's doing fine.
oh yeah, Logan's right here. Logan's so funny because she can always tell when I'm like wrapping up a call or a podcast, and then she'll always get off of the like couch or whatever, and then come over and be like, "Time for you to give me attention."
For sure.
It's like, yeah, you're not wrong. Oh, she's coming to say hi now. So everybody who's watching the YouTube video can see Logan saying hi to Shay.
Did we decide that they were the same breed? What is Logan?
So I haven't done a DNA test on her yet, but I want to. Think she's like boxer pit bull
That's what
mix.
she looks. Okay, mine looks like, maybe now that I think about it, mine looks like Pit Lab, or that's what we assume.
Okay, yeah. Does yours have the paws, like the webbed paws?
I don't really know. This was my first animal, so I have no idea. By the way, we bonded over having rescue animals,
Yep.
loving to save money, not having kids,
Yeah.
and being outgoing. Because I feel like we were the
Oh,
outgoing two.
absolutely. Absolutely. It was like Shay and I connected like instantly where it was like,
For
all right, I
sure.
can I can be myself around this one, especially too because I felt like we were both okay, let me give context first.
You
Okay,
have
so
to.
Shay and I were invited by the state of Nebraska to come to Omaha, attend some like curated events for people in finance and business and tech, and like then post about it. And we were paid for this. We got to bring a plus one, all that stuff. I brought my mom, Shay brought her husband. And what I thought was unique about you and I, and probably Taylor as well, is we had businesses, whereas like a couple of the people there were like straight influencers. And so you and
Hmm.
I felt a little out of place because it was like everybody was taking these beautiful photos everywhere they
And we
went.
and we were trash.
Yes, and we even had an Instagram coach try and teach us how to pose, and Shay did beautifully. I took that picture and you look
I
stunning.
remember that.
Yes, and meanwhile, I'm taking it and I'm like, "Oh, I look like a thumb." I was
I
like,
forgot about that.
"Oh yeah," on the rooftop of that like they took us to what was that place? It was like
I
Carson's
don't know.
group?
Carson Group or something. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, it was like this financial advisor building. It was a really cool building in the middle of
For
nowhere.
sure. Fancy building too. Very
Yes,
tech savvy.
100%. So that's when I met
Mhm.
Shay, and at the time, Shay, you were still working full time, doing your YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So tell us, give us an update. What are you doing now?
That's all still the same. I think, yeah, that's all still the same. I have the same job, and literally everything's exactly the same. My life is the same.
Love it.
So
Well,
I was gonna say I still work 9 to 5 with children in the school system, still running my YouTube channel, and my Etsy shop has I've been fading it out since the beginning of the year. So literally everything's exactly still the same.
oh my God, I love it though. But I remember when we were talking, you don't actually have any desire to quit your job, right? Like you
I do
really love
not.
what you do.
Yes, I
That's
do.
so cool. I love that. That's awesome that you
Mhm.
found something you love, but you can also run your business as well.
Yes. As when I was graduating and when I got my master's degree and all that, I was well aware that some people go to college and they don't actually end up choosing the career path that kind of aligns with their degrees. And so as soon as I knew for sure that, social work was something that I would be interested in. And then as I've begun to progress, I've learned that it's like a world of opportunity. So I'm grateful that I actually chose to spend money on a degree or multiple degrees that would later, because you don't know when you go to college. I was undecided for 2 years. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was just there to be there. I was doing my work and whatnot, but I had no idea. And it's so much pressure for 16, 17, 18-year-olds to try to figure out what they want to do with life. And then they end up spending 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 plus on a degree, and where that's not where their passion lies. So I'm
Right.
fortunate enough to where I do actually enjoy doing this. So that's just a random thing. But yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy doing it. I just like working with kids though, so I think I could work with kids in any capacity.
Yeah.
But to be paid such an amount to work with kids just is, me and my coworker were talking about it the other day. We were like, this is a lot of money for a job that's not that hard.
That's a good
So
place to be in. Oh my
exactly. I
gosh.
think all of that to say, I think that's part of the reason too. When I had my first job, I'm like, I just got to go like meet with kids all day just because I love kids. But I just have to go meet and chat with kids about their struggles all day and they'll pay me to do it. Sign me up. Because most people
Yeah.
deal with kids anyway, but they have their own kids. But most people have to deal with kids in some type of capacity anyway. So it just was a
Yeah.
no-brainer.
And I don't know if you guys listening can already tell, Shay is just like such a warm person. She is the perfect personality for working with kids and like
This
talking
is
to
true.
kids about their problems. So like it's wholly and completely aligned with who you are as a human
For
being.
sure.
So
For
I
sure.
love that. Although if you get a little bit of alcohol in her, this woman turns crazy.
This is true. This is true.
Let's just say Omaha was lit.
Super lit. You guys probably, I am still shocked. I can't believe that was just this year. Doesn't it seem like it was a long time ago?
No.
It was just like 6, 7 months ago. But if you think Omaha is lame, then you just got to do your research and go to the places that are lit because downtown Omaha was where it was at for me and my husband.
Yes, and I took Shay to her very first dive bar. Shay,
You did.
your husband, and Jazz, who were with us, you guys had never been to a dive bar before, and I remember you told me that as we pulled up, and I go, "Okay, I'm gonna need you to lower your expectations immediately." But that was fun.
Well,
This
I'm
we
down
went
for it. That was fun.
Yeah, we
It's
went
so
to a
funny you mentioned that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say because I went with a friend a couple days ago to some kind of wine place or whatever, and we were talking about dive bars or something. And I was like, "Have you ever been?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "You've been to a dive bar? I just learned what that was like 5 months ago." What? So apparently people go to that, but I had no idea what a
Oh,
dive bar
yeah.
was. But that was that's because we did the I did a flight of mimosas at this little place that I went to. And I was like, I've had a flight somewhere. What did I? But I think we had a flight of margaritas or
No,
something.
it was a flight of champagne.
Oh, so it was Mark. Okay,
So it was like cheap champagne. So it was
it
like
was.
they were different flavors of champagnes,
Yes, like
but
strawberry and stuff.
yes, to give everybody perspective, the flights, I'm doing air quotes around flights because they literally just gave us full-size glasses of champagne, one
Yes,
right after another, and it was like I think me and Jazz were the only ones who actually got the flight because you got I wanna
I
say
think I
you got,
gotta
like
dry something.
yes, and so me and Jazz order our flights and they start pouring and I'm like, "Oh my god, I literally just got 4 full glasses of champagne," and it's like cheap champagne, like strawberry champagne, peach champagne, like all these oh my god, it was like as soon as I drank those, I knew I was gonna be hungover, and I was hungover for 2 days.
And I think
So
Jazz drank something else too, like a because my husband was drinking margaritas, I think. So yeah. Anyway, Omaha was a good time.
yes, it was, and we're not even sponsored by Omaha in this podcast episode.
No paychecks, no paychecks. But if they want to fly us back out, then feel free.
I got you. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so before we get into I just want to talk about your journey, like where you are right now. But before we do, tell everybody so we know a little bit you work with kids in school, but what do you do online? What is Shay Budgets? What's your channels? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so Shea Budgets came about 5 years ago whenever I took to YouTube to start talking about money. And so that is what I have been doing. So every week I typically upload at least, I shoot for 2 videos per week on YouTube, and that's like my main income stream. I've since started working with brands, and then about 3 years ago, I actually started at my Etsy shop. I don't think that Etsy can stick around long term for me because I don't feel like I have the capacity to manage it because technically you can control your sales and whatnot, but that just seems strange to I've been thinking about either am I going to leave it open for a week or and then open it back up the next week or close it and open it. So anyway,
Mhm.
Etsy shop. I also do some coaching, especially for folks who are trying to get started with Etsy. That is something that people really are looking to do, or YouTube, but mostly I feel like Etsy is where people come to me for coaching. So those are kind of like the things that I those yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
And Remind me, with your Etsy shop, was it physical products or was it digital downloads?
Both. I
Oh,
dabbled in both.
I can see why physical products would be, like, a little bit, like,
Yes.
arduous. Like, you've gotta
Mhm.
constantly be, like, managing that stream, whereas, like, a
Yep.
digital download, that's gotta be way
Mhm.
easier.
Super easy because you just upload it and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what inspired you to start doing Shea budgets? What was the inspiration? How did you get to a point where you're like, "You know what? I have a skill that I feel like I need to start teaching people about."
I We were recently married. We are the couple who believes in joint finances. And so when I reflect back on why anyone might be intrigued by me sharing that in whatever, because really where it came from is that I was in these Facebook groups, and I was in like finance Facebook groups and planner Facebook groups and whatever. And I had shared like a win or something in one of those groups. And then people were like, you got to show us how you do it, blah, 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 blah. I tried to upload a video to Facebook. It didn't work. So I
Mm.
uploaded one to YouTube, and then that's how Shea Budgets was born. And that's what inspired me to do that. And I think after I uploaded my first video, I think honestly, after it got so many views, I was like, let's upload another one. And so I just continued to do that. But
Oh
that's
my
where it
gosh.
stemmed from.
So you literally just fell into it. It wasn't like you didn't
Hmm.
have this like plan of I'm going to be Shea
No,
budget. It was just like this
no.
natural occurrence. And at the
Hmm.
time, what was the content that you were talking about? You mentioned planners and you mentioned doing like an explainer video. So what was
Yes.
the content when you first started?
I didn't know that the whole world would be kind of shook by this, because now it just seems trivial because a lot of people do it. But I would say back in 5+ years ago, there weren't a lot of people talking about money
Mm-mm,
online at all, on YouTube specifically. So maybe that's what kind of compelled people. But I
mhm,
was just sharing how that month or whatever, we had paid off all of our credit cards in
mhm,
2 months. And so that was something that people wanted to learn more about. And so then
mhm.
I just began to share different tips and tricks in not only the process or our progress, but also, like I said, tips and tricks on how people can get a grasp of their money. But like I said, now that I think about it, there weren't a lot of people talking about money 5, 6 years ago, 5.5, I think 5.5 years ago. Also, I think the transition as we were newlyweds and whatever, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to tackle, because that's what I am. Sidebar, I feel like even though we have joint finances, this only really works because we have joint goals. So our
Yes.
goal, yes, this is only if you are not on the same page, you have different views about money and saving and investing and all that, then it's not going to work as seamlessly. So I think that is what intrigued most people. And I always try to share that with people that yes, we have joint finances, but that's because we have joint goals. So we both spend a certain amount of money and save a certain amount and invest a certain amount. That's how we progress through life as a couple. I'm sure we would not have been married had we not been on the same wavelength when it comes to that. But that's how that works for us.
Okay. And so for you guys growing up, like you guys have been dating since college, right?
Yeah, I was in college. He had just graduated. Yes.
Okay, okay. So for you tell us a little bit about what was money like for you growing up and how did that contrast your husband's view of money growing up?
Okay. So I grew up in a single parent household because my dad passed away from medical conditions and we were poor. I remember I was 5 or 6 before he passed away. And so before then I don't have a lot of memories, but I don't remember a struggle.
Mhm.
But as soon as a sudden death took place and we went down to one income, that's when stuff hit the fan, and that's when we were struggling. And so we struggled up until pretty much up until maybe like high school, but so for a long time. So from 6 to 17 or whatever, we did struggle. My mom had 3 kids. I have a sister and a brother that lived in the home. And poor, nobody really knew. When you don't have money, you really don't really talk about it necessarily. You don't know about investing. You don't save any because you don't have any to save.
Right.
You just live paycheck to paycheck, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the extent of it. So no conversations about money. But I knew at 8 that I did not want to live. I didn't want to live in poverty if I didn't have to. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of what prompted me to go to college. And so that was my journey. My husband, also single parent household after his parents divorced, and she has the same job that I have. So she, for all intents and purposes, makes a decent salary or whatever. And she's always had that job. They definitely had more money, but his mom's, even though my mom never even mentioned a credit card, like she never had a credit card, his mom's approach in educating her son, who is her only child, was don't get a credit card, save your money. She was sharing more education, but it was fear based, of course, because
Right.
don't get a credit card, just don't do that, and without education on why that isn't super helpful either. So it really was us as we were dating, especially in those later stages before we got married, really talking about what we wanted to do, how we wanted to approach finances, and what we wanted that to look like for us. And again, thankfully, we've always been in alignment that we want to be debt free. We want to invest and save at the same rate that we spend, if not more. And we also are pretty simple people. We're not really flashy. We don't really spend a lot of money on different things. We're just pretty simple people. So that is helpful. But that's
Yeah.
kind of how those were the money messages. That's what I call it. Those were the money messages that were taught to both of us when we were growing up.
Yeah. So for you guys meeting in your mid 20s or early 20s,
Early 20s.
early 20s, at
Mhm.
that point, what had been, you grew up in poverty. At 8 years
Mhm.
old, you said to yourself, I do not want to live this life, and that's what made you go to college. But where did you develop the skills of managing your money? If you're already coming into your relationship in your early 20s and know that you want to be debt free and do all of this stuff, clearly there was an evolution that happened along the way. And can you tell us a little bit about what that evolution looked like for you personally?
I can. I think part of it, though, when you grow up in poverty and you don't want to, especially, is that you have to essentially do things that have never been done. So I knew that I would have to, if I don't have any money, then I can't save any. If I'm literally
Yeah.
have bare minimum, then I can't save any. So I knew that I would have to go on to um, get some kind of degree that was going to earn some kind of decent salary. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's what I felt that I had to do, given my circumstances. I'm sure we all know that you can make money without, you don't need a college degree to be successful. But if you don't have any resources or anything laid before you, then you might have to go to college route. But anyway, I think I knew that I was going to have to really do things that had never been done and educate myself. So I was going to have
Mhm.
to be watching videos and searching the internet and learning or trying to meet people who could share with me their knowledge and skill set. So that's what separated me from maybe anybody else who may have been in my predicament, that I knew that I was going to have to move mountains to make this
Yeah.
happen. And I think it's also fear based too. So it's also fear based because if I'm like, I don't want to be like trying to figure out where food is going to come from. So now I
That
have to
fear
hoard
motivated
money.
you.
Yeah, now I have to hoard money or get an extra job so I can have excess money. And now I have to really monitor my spending habits and my saving habits. And then also when you're in that position, you want to save extra so you never have to worry about. So it was like a also rooted in fear and anxiety about the potential to not earn enough or not have enough.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think now that you've been doing this for a while, you're making a good income, you've clearly learned how to manage it really well. Do you think the
Mhm.
fear still sneaks in sometimes?
Fear of what?
Fear of
Fear
not
of not.
having enough, fear of having to live. Because I always think about childhood, and there are still things that absolutely impact me from my childhood where
Sure.
I'm totally trying to get over it. But I think that fear is one of them because I always have this fear that, oh, it's all going to get taken away from me. Boom, boom. It's like,
You're
it's
open
fine.
about that too.
Oh, yeah,
You're
absolutely.
open about that.
Because I want people to know that we always post stuff, or I always post stuff of look at how much I've grown, look at my net worth increases, look how much money I'm making. And in the back of my mind, I also want to tell people but I just want you to know that even though I've got all these things and all of this is going, there's still a lot of work happening in my brain to be like, it's not all going to disappear, Chloe. We don't
Yes.
want to only share the highlight reel.
I think I don't have fear. I've never had a fear of not having a job just because of the field that I work in. So I know I'm always going to have a certain salary just because of my skill set that I have, rather, I should say. And so I don't have that fear. I don't have a fear that I'll not have enough. I do, and I've shared this before in a video too. I do have other negative feelings related to money. Like sometimes I feel anxious. Like today, I was feeling literally today I was feeling anxious, or the past couple of days, because we want to throw a party, a post-COVID party in October. I just did my niece, who's turning 18, some AirPods for her birthday tomorrow. I have another birthday gift to get. We have a baby shower gift to get this weekend. We have another birthday gift.
So like
Sometimes when I'm thinking,
thousands.
yes, yes, yes. And then we still want to do our date nights and do fall things and whatever. So even though I see the budget and I'm like, this is fine. Like we've accommodated for these things. Like we can pay for the party we want to do and this and that and the third. I'm still like, this is a lot. So for me, it's like when there's a lot of expenses, but of course I don't want to not uh, buy gifts or not have fun or not do whatever. So for me, I
Yeah.
think it's more so like anxiety around that's what I typically experience. So
Yeah.
I try to share the same thing that it doesn't matter how much money you have or make or whatever, you still may have some adverse feelings around money. So not
Yeah.
fear, but more like anxiety for me.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, for sure. And it's like always that for me, I used to in college not have control at all over my spending. Even though I had no money, I would just spend whatever came into my pocket right out the window. So it's like now that I'm making more, I'm definitely spending more. I'm obviously
Hmm.
investing and saving more too. But there's always that worry of what if you fall down that slippery slope and you're
Hmm.
blowing through money again. But I think it's one of those
Mm.
things where it's just like the longer it happens, the more you trust yourself and you realize, okay, no, we got this. And my mindset has definitely been one of those things that I'm working on and will continue to work on, I would say.
And I think too, I would say that the more you're earning, because I just think about creators, people get paid a lot of money to do this. Like when you're creating content or putting out courses or whatever, you can make a lot of money doing this more than what people probably think. And
Mhm.
sometimes people make more in a month than some people make in a year at their full-time job. So also I think for a lot of creators is have that same fear about sure I made $20,000 this month, but next month I might not because that's the reality is that it fluctuates. Or so I think a lot of creators though do struggle with that, which makes sense because some people are making more money than they ever thought imaginable. And so if you don't have good money management skills, if you don't have a healthy relationship with money, then a lot of those feelings can come up about fear. So that's
Yeah, for
valid.
for sure. So, one of the things that I hear from couples a lot, which it sounds like you and Mr. Budgets, that's who he is on Instagram. So, that's who I always think of him as. You and your husband have seemed to really nail down the whole having conversations about money, having shared goals, and things like that. Was there anything that you guys did in the early stages or even continue to do that you think have really helped with those navigating these tough conversations?
I think we literally, this sounds so corny, but I remember some of our first text conversations. He would be talking about all these fancy things that he wants to do with his money because we were friends first. So I didn't really care. It was like a natural thing because I didn't really care what this random dude wanted out of his life, to be honest. But he would
Yeah.
share all these different things. And some of them would be like so far fetched and wild. And I would be like, what? I think the floor was open to have those conversations, especially in the beginning, because really neither one of us really cared that much. It was just like just talking about random, what's your favorite color, or do you want to be a homeowner, or just random stuff. But I think that kind of laid the foundation for us to openly communicate about that. But I think though, there are some topics that people are nervous to talk about in general, or they feel that it's taboo. Even if they're married, they don't want to talk about certain topics. And so I think that you definitely have to get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations because if you're going to be in a relationship, a long term one, if you're going to be married and all of that, you're going to have to break down those barriers and get having conversations. So when you're having budget meetings, and that's when folks are having budget meetings, that in and of itself is helping to alleviate some of those negative feelings or some of the discomfort that people have about money. So just practicing it and easing into it is what I try to share with people. You don't have to try to tackle every single element of finances when you're having your first conversation with your spouse or partner or whomever about money. But I think having those conversations before getting married and even outlining what we would do with our money once we got married was super helpful.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that what you said about we only have joint finances because we have joint goals is so important because that's the thing is like I hear so often that people are like, I'm really into saving for retirement and like getting my finances together, but my spouse just isn't, or my partner just isn't. And my question is always, have you taken the time to dream together? Do you know what you guys want out of life? And it's like in a very specific way that you would plan your own dreams, plan your own goals and things like that. And I feel like that's often the missing piece is what's your dream? What do you guys do together? Why should they even be excited about this?
And I always try to tell people to, because some people wake up and they're like, we need to get our money together or whatever. And so one partner is whip together some whole plan for what is about to happen, and the other partner is, whoa, I'm not at the same place that you are at right now.
Yeah.
So understanding that just because you've come up with this whole plan, even if it's not related to money, but obviously we're talking about money, you have to figure out a way to connect with your partner and onboard them to this process and think about what you can do. And I share a similar tip, like, create your, I just did a coaching session the other day. Let's talk about this, because I think yes, she's trying to get the finances together. They just got married and he is still out swiping. And so I'm like, we're gonna have to figure out, let's talk now about what you guys can do, because they do have shared finances technically. Let's talk about what you can achieve with this money. Let's put together a plan. And then your first step could be presenting this to him. Hey, this is how much you make, this is how much I make, this is the income that we have, these are the bills that we have. We need to tackle this debt, because they had been talking about that. So if we start here and we do this one, then we can move on to this one, while also having some space, because they're going to have a joint account and two separate accounts, but also
Mm.
sharing that they're sharing what money he would have so he can spend it, because they each have a spending amount of money or personal spending money, but just presenting a concrete plan and seeing if he's comfortable with that and taking it from there. That was their starting point, because
Mhm.
they're in agreement that they want to get their finances together. But if nobody has a plan and it's not solid, it's not concrete, then it's probably going to fall to the wayside. And we have to have both parties on board.
For
So
sure. You gotta have the dream and then you gotta have the plan because the dream is
yes,
not gonna happen without a plan. That's for sure.
absolutely, for sure,
That's what I always say about manifestation. It's sure manifestation's cool and important, but the manifestation doesn't work if you're not gonna work.
for sure.
For you guys with your joint finance situation, so how do you do it? Do you currently combine everything into one joint account or do you do the joint account and then separate accounts too?
Everything in one joint account, and that is because I fully understand people who don't want to go that route. I'm not very much a judgmental person anyway, but that is because my husband's spending is so low. Like, he might spend $100 per month. Like, literally, he's always been that way. Like, I could give him. I'm actually thinking about starting to put $100 in his account, because we do have separate accounts with Chime,
Yeah.
but we don't really. I use mine a ton for the business pretty much, and he doesn't too much use his. But so that does exist. But I've been thinking about just transferring his money over, but there's no need. But I was just thinking that could be an option. But he spends so little that it doesn't. I don't have to monitor gonna buy anything. He does it. If he does, it's a shocker, and I don't really care, because I spend money all the time anyway. So it really wouldn't be
Yeah.
that big of a deal. But all the money goes into one pot, and then investments come out the first of the month, of course, and then we invest more throughout the month if we have extra and whatever. And then the month goes and the bills come out and paychecks
Mhm.
get deposited and bills come out. And that's what works for us, only because, like I said, we just know each other so well that we
Yeah.
want, and we can all, it's not like anything's hidden. He can see everything that's happening, I can see everything that's happening, what he see. But honestly, we don't save that much money anyway. So like, I always laugh when people are talking about prenups or like people having shared finances. I'm like, we in the beginning we didn't even have that much money anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It ain't like we came in making 100,000 each per year or something. And then though, all of our money gets invested. Half of our income, I feel like, goes to investing at the beginning of the month. So it's not
That's
like we have a lot.
amazing.
That's
I love
amazing,
that
but
you guys. Yeah, the figure
it's true.
figure so casually like, oh yeah, we invest half of our income, girl. Let's all applaud for that. That's freaking amazing.
I know, but what I'm saying is, in this season, we don't have a lot of money to blow, I guess is what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
we're in this season of investing a lot of it. So that's just pretty much how that works. But yeah, some people have been in marriages or relationships where there's been financial infidelity, if you will. But I'm like, you can have, it doesn't, like, the couple that I was just talking, or the lady that I was just talking to, you can have separate finances and whatever, separate accounts rather. That's perfectly fine. But you're still gonna have to. One person can't be. You're gonna have to be in agreement in some kind of way. One person can't be
Oh,
paying
100%.
all the bills or paying all this or whatever. You can go half, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. It's your guys' finances. everybody just needs to be comfortable with what's happening. So that's pretty much all that matters.
Yeah, and I think it's important too for both partners to be involved to an extent because it's like you need to know what's going on because what happens if he passes away prematurely or something happens or they get a divorce or whatever, you need to at least know what's going on. Often it's
You
too
100%.
yeah, too often it's like women who are not involved in the finances. Luckily, like in my community, a lot of the women are my husband's not even involved. And I'm like,
Right.
I love that, but also he should be. Like, I think everybody should have like
100%.
an equal say because it's like
For
shit
sure.
happens all the time. I love that. I think that's really cool. And that's what I always say too about finances. People always ask me, like, what's the way me and my partner should manage finances? And I'm like, everybody's different. It may joint accounts may work for you and may not work for somebody else. And it's all about figuring out what works for you guys. So I
For
love
sure.
that. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say similarly, I often hear that one person has no idea about what's going on. And I'm like, I realize that I'm the CFO around here, but I can't fathom a world where I'm just waltzing through life through my in my relationship or whatever, and I have no idea about like I have a coworker and she would be, oh, my husband manages, and now granted they've been together like 40 years or something, whatever. But she's, oh, my husband manages the bills and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I can't, because they're
Oh,
older too. They're like 60. And I'm like, I can't imagine a world where I don't know what the bills are. I'm not paying them. I don't know what we're saving, if we're investing. I have no idea what's going on. Because, like you said, there's going to come a time where something's going to happen.
yeah.
That's a no brainer for me. But there
It
are people
is.
who have no idea. And I'm like,
And that always terrifies me because I'm like, especially women, women live longer than men, period. End of story. It's not a question of if you will have to someday know what's going on with your finances. It's a question of when. At some point
mm-hmm,
in your life, you are going to have to manage your money in some
mm-hmm,
aspect. And the thing too is like, we hear about financial infidelity all the time. We hear about
mm-hmm.
people mismanaging funds and this like false belief that, oh, he's a man, so he can do it better than me is just like, it's so damaging. But luckily, people like you and me are
I was going to say, I do it
women.
better. I do it much
Yes,
better.
I love it.
I do. That's why I do it, because I can
Yeah.
plan and organize. And I always tell my husband, I'm not sure. First of all of our bills are on auto pay, but I was just thinking, I don't know that any bill would get paid if we really had to rely on him to like manually go in and pay these bills or whatever.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't think people should be ashamed of that. But I also think in your relationship, you gotta, like in everything else, now, money is there's a lot more feelings involved around money, but just like in everything else, I think a person should do what they are good at. Like, why would I struggle through cooking if I don't, like, why would I want to do that if my partner can do a better an
Yeah.
example of it?
Oh, for
So, but
sure.
you should always be in the know with what's happening with money, especially because money that's serious.
Yeah, you can't outsource it. Like, you gotta know something about it.
Yeah,
And even if you do outsource it with a financial advisor or something, you still wanna know the
for
basics
sure.
so you can make sure that they're
For
managing it
sure, for
correctly.
sure, for sure.
So
I always say
it's
that we have a
wild.
financial advisor, and I'm like, I see
Mhm.
everything that I go into my account. I see everything that's in. Partially, we do this for accountability, but I'm like, I go in, I see what's happening, I know what's happening, I see everything that's going
Mhm.
down. There's no secret. I keep up with it. You know what I'm saying? So I stress that to people too when they ask about having a financial advisor. I'm like, he's not just doing whatever he wants out here. I know what's happening and where the money is going and
Yeah.
where it's being invested and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's so important. For also, before I ask you my next question, what's the reason that you guys say 50% or invest 50%? Is it because you want to retire as soon as possible, or is it just because like you're trying to
Hmm.
get to millionaire status as quickly as possible?
More so about retirement, I think. It's just if we can, why wouldn't we? If it's an
Right.
option, I might as well take advantage of it. Like I'm sure the people, my parents and their parents, worked until they died, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I can do it, then I might as well do it. And if the worst case scenario is that if I don't retire early and I end up wanting to work later, or what, the worst case scenario is I have a bunch of money saved. That's the worst case scenario. Is that I'm ahead of the game. But that's it. Since our spending is relatively low for the most part, we just save as much as we can. So that's
I
kind of
love
the
it.
reason.
Yeah, you're gonna be like retired in 10 years.
What's that? Work optional. That's really what we're going for. If I can be work optional in 10, 15 years, then I'm chucking up the deuce to these kids. Because
I love it.
Because by
Love.
45, 50, they'll probably be stressing me out. Right now, I'm young and whatever, and it's fine. But like by 45, they'll probably have stressed me out. I'll probably have gray hair. So that's my
You're like,
time to buy
bye.
out.
You're like, all
It's
right,
been real.
it's it's been my time. That's hilarious. Well, that's beauty of options. That's the beauty
Mhm.
of getting your money right so that you could decide, okay, I'm
Mhm.
out, or I want to take a
Mhm.
break, or I want to take a
Mhm.
hiatus.
For
I
sure.
love that. So if somebody is listening and they're like, oh, this is really cool, I'd like to do something like this someday, what would be like your top 3 tips to somebody who's trying to get their money right?
I would say a part of it is as a clinician, I have to say that a part of it is healing oneself, because a lot of times poor spending and all of that is triggered by being in a relationships that aren't healthy, or being having been raised in households that were traumatic and those types of things. So I would say to heal oneself, because I just don't really, I don't know that effective money management is at the top of the to-do list with people who are really struggling, not just financially, but struggling in other ways. And it kind of just goes hand in hand. Like sometimes if your mental health is not so well, then your financial health is not so well, and vice versa. So that would be my first tip, because I
Preach.
feel like that opens the doors to a whole world of opportunity. So that might
Mhm.
be going to therapy, getting your improving your mental health. That could be what that looks like, or might be improving your physical health if you know, whatever your struggles are outside of finances, even though they probably are related, but healing those from the inside out. That would be my first tip.
Yeah.
My second tip would probably be, in addition to that, working identifying the money messages that you were taught when you were younger, because some people, again, fear of money, or fear of not having enough money, or whatever the case is, but trying to identify what you were actually taught about money. Because the truth of the matter is, in life, we just go off of whatever we're taught when we were younger. But when we
Mhm.
get older, we start forming our own opinions and stuff. And again, no one ever told me anything about early investing or whatever, or saving or budgeting or anything. But as I got older, I'm like, this is, I kind of want to retire early if I can. This is something that's up my alley. Find the money messages that you were taught when you were younger, and seeing if they even align with the current vision or values that you have right now. And then
Mhm.
I would say, honestly, looking to educate oneself, because the fact of the matter is, I've learned money management and education from a little bit of everybody. Social media, Instagram, YouTube, Google, my financial advisor, a little bit of everybody. So just learning the ropes, and then also that will help you decide what you actually want in life and what you want your financial health to look like and to be. Some people are completely happy with like luxury items. Some people are completely happy with whatever, not being cheapskates or whatever. Some people are complete, like my husband, he's happy with being cheap. Some people are completely content with whatever their financial health is. But it's still important to get that education so you can know what your options are. Because if you don't know what your options are, then you can't take advantage of them. So,
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I think I completely resonate with those reasons as well. I always tell people the same thing is your money and mental health, they go hand in hand. And if you're struggling mentally, it's going to impact your finances. If you're struggling financially, it's also going to impact your mental health. So really addressing
hmm
it from the inside out is amazing. And I
hmm
love too what you said about educating yourself and getting it like from different perspectives. And that's one of the reasons that I
hmm
have so many different perspectives on the podcast, is because I want you to get a well-rounded education so you can decide which like what
for
you
sure.
believe in, what you want to go with.
For
So
sure. Because there
very
are tons
cool.
of people who prioritize debt payoff. There are tons of people who do debt payoff and investing. There are tons of people who do whatever is going to be comfortable and float your boat is what you should do. But obviously, we want to make sure that you have um, gotten perspectives from various sources so you can make educated decisions,
Yeah.
especially if you weren't educated on any of these things when you were a child or growing up.
Mhm.
So those
Completely agree.
are those would be my 3 tips.
I love it. All right, before I let you go, I have one final question, but before we get
Okay.
to the final question, this is your chance to promote yourself. Tell everybody where can they find you? What do you got going on right now? Do the promotion.
I sure will. Okay, so I am on YouTube as Shay Budgets, although I've been thinking about changing that since it was created on a whim. I am on Instagram as Shay Budgets, and my website is shaybudgets.com. So if you want to book a session for coaching, YouTube, Etsy, budget coaching, what have you, any services that I'm providing, you can learn all about them on my website.
Awesome. And we'll put links to that in the show notes, of course. So, my final question to you is one that I ask everybody. What is your very first money memory?
Probably, I would say, honestly, the thing that resonates with me most, I don't know if it's, I guess you could say it's a money memory. I remember my dad would, for fun, but also not for fun, gamble. And he would play cards. He would do whatever he could do to get money. And I just remember that being something. I don't remember my mom bringing it up as an issue necessarily, but I do remember him. I visibly remember seeing him doing those types of things to get money. Again, it's kind of like a fun thing. I'm from a small town, but also if you won, then you came up on some hundreds or thousands or whatever. So I don't know if he had a gambling addiction, but I just remember gambling to be something that he did a lot. And again, I don't know that it caused problems necessarily, but I just remember that's what I remember about money. So I guess that's back to 5 years old is when that's when I started grasping a little bit
5?
about money.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
so interesting that your first like exposure to money was through gambling. So, do you gamble? Do you ever gamble?
I will, but because I live a YOLO lifestyle. But my thing is, so I haven't gambled in like years. I only do it on a cruise or Vegas or whatever. My thing is, the potential to lose it stresses me. Like it's fun, and I'd rather do it not to gamble. But so the idea of losing money really stresses me out because I mean, because it's a 50-50 chance I'm going to win or
Yeah.
honestly, I like playing blackjack. I normally lose anyway. I feel like the odds are not against. I feel like the odds are not in your favor when you're playing blackjack. Yeah, so if I'm on a cruise or whatever, I'll get a couple $100 and I'm like, all right, like this is it. If I lose this 200, I'm cutting myself off because I'm not about to be out here losing hundreds of dollars on blackjack. But I will gamble. I do like it, but again, I'm not going to be out here like my dad was because fear.
Yeah, yep, and I always tell people, like, you can do fun stuff with your money, and, like,
For
gambling is just, like,
sure.
another, like, fun thing to do with
It
your
is.
money if you enjoy
It's
doing it,
fun.
so it's all about budgeting for it or putting it
Mhm.
into being like, "This is my limit. Once I lose X amount of dollars,
For
I'm
sure.
done."
Yeah, it's similar to spending money and having some money to spend frivolously. So if you're going on vacation, a couple hundred of it might go to gambling or drink. It's a similar, it's like a fun experience. But yeah, you do have to have parameters around everything or your life
Yeah.
would be out of sorts. So
Chaos, chaos.
yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Also, I just have to shout out your super cute pumpkin pillows. Those are
Thank you.
amazing. I was
Thank
like,
you.
your aesthetic right now is so fall. I love it.
Oh, wait, and here's another one. Wait, it's right here. Wait, it's over here. There's a little pumpkin on the
Oh
table. I
my
didn't
gosh,
even notice that.
it's so cute. You are so ready for spooky season. I love it.
I am. Fall is here.
Heck yes. Thank you so much for coming on. I love talking to you. So it was good to catch up with you.
Same.
It was so good reconnecting with Shay. I haven't seen her since we met in Omaha, but we like message back and forth on Instagram all the time. And I feel like she's a bestie for the restie. Was that cringe? That might have been cringe. I'm sorry. It just came out of my mouth and like in my mind, I thought it was going to sound cool, but I don't think it sounded cool at all. So let's just pretend I didn't say that. Well, yeah. Okay. Anyway. So in this lesson, or in this, not in this lesson, what I am losing my mind, friends. In today's episode, when we talked to Shay, we talked a little bit about her and her husband combine all of their finances, but the only way she would ever recommend that is if you have joint goals. And even with that, she still has a separate personal account and he still has a separate personal account. Even though it sounds like they don't use them, it's nice to know that if for some reason something happened, she does have that opportunity to funnel money into that bank account if something were to happen. So she's still got that protection, but overall it sounds like what they're doing works for them. And when it comes to finances between couples, I think that's important is you have to figure out what works for you guys. Obviously, you should always protect yourself, but figure out what works for you and you're good. So she also talked about her 3 tips were heal yourself from the inside out if you're struggling with money. I think that's so important and so true. And something we talk about here a lot on my Instagram page, on my blog, and which by the way, did you guys know I have a blog? Just clobear.com. It's old, but there's still some good stuff on there. Like last week we put out a post about how to invest and like what do I invest in, like all that stuff. So definitely check that out if you're curious. But anyway, She talked about healing from the inside out, talking about what money messages that you've internalized. I think so many of us have internal messages around money that we don't even realize. And getting to those and figuring those out and breaking them down is incredibly important if you ever want to do better, if you ever want to change. And then her last point was educate yourself, which, if you guys are listening to this, you've already made strides in educating yourself. So everyone give yourself a round of applause because that's really important. Honestly, that's the only way you're going to get started is with taking action, and educating yourself is taking action in my eyes. But yeah, if you need some more resources on how to educate yourself beyond the Money Bear podcast, beyond Clo Bear Money Coach, you should check out my free 30-page Get Your Money Right guide. It is at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And I think that's all I've got for you guys today. So again, that's at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And as always, since we're talking about money, please keep in mind that nothing on this show is meant to be financial advice. It is for information only, education only, entertainment only, opinion only, all of those other onlys. But if you have any questions about our terms and conditions, you can check that out in the show notes. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. I love you all, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye bye.